at the end of the last video, I know I said that the Nuggets had put Emmanuel Mudiay out there. They'd kind of thrown him out there. So right after that, I talked to the Denver GM. I was like, why is Emmanuel Mudiay out there? He's young. And basically what I got back, he was young. He was a top pick. I'm like, why is he out on the market right now? And why are you dangling him out there? And they were like, well, we've got Jokic, we've got Gary Harris, we've got Will Barton, we've got a Wilson Chandler, a Jameer Nelson, Jamal Murray. All these guys are playing over Emmanuel Mudiay. Emmanuel Mudiay only played like 4 games so far, and I checked the standings. They are the 6th seed in the standings. And they were like, we are making a playoff push with this core, but we don't have a lot of cap room, and this core is going to have to get paid soon. A lot of these guys are due for big contracts, and he was like, basically, Emmanuel Mudiay, and they had the Warriors' first-round pick, which the Warriors are first in the conference, so that pick's pretty much a second-round pick, and they've got their own pick, but if they make a playoff push, that's going to be a very late first-rounder. So they've got those 2 picks that they're willing to throw out there in Emmanuel Mudiay, and they're like, we're using Mudiay or those picks or all of them to get rid of a ton of salary to open up our cap so we can sign this young core that we've got that right now is doing good. We're in the playoff race. We think we could maybe win a championship way down the line with this core. And they were like, so that's why Mudiay's out there. We're dangling him because we feel like this core can get us there, and we need to pay this core soon. So we've got to get off some of these guys with big contracts. So I started talking to their GM about maybe acquiring Mudiay, and things got crazy real quick. First, he throws out a Kenneth Faried. He wants to get rid of him. Then, for a while, Faried was out there, and then he took back Faried, and he was like, well, actually, we're playing Faried a lot. His contract's not terrible. He makes $12 million a year, and we want to keep him. So then he started throwing out other guys. Things were getting crazy. The Utah Jazz came in. At one point, I was going to take a Derek Favors in a trade, a 3-way deal between us, Utah, and Denver. Then Utah backed out at the last second and said, never mind, we'll keep our guys. That's when Indiana hopped in and said, we'll take young guys, we'll take first-round picks. We're not afraid to take on some salary. The Pacers actually don't have that much salary on their books. I was surprised. I thought they'd taken more. They only really had Ashik. So that's kind of how this trade formed. We had the Pacers, we had us, and we had Denver. Denver was trying to get off salary. The Pacers want they want picks and young guys. We want young guys. So as you guys can tell from my excitement, we have completed a 3-way trade with the Indiana Pacers, the Denver Nuggets, and us, the Lakers. I'm going to throw a picture up of the trade because it gets very complicated. But basically, we gave up Larry Nance Jr. and Luol Deng. The Pacers gave up Monte Ellis, Lavoy Allen, and Nicholas Brusano, if I'm saying that right. And the Nuggets gave up Alec Burks, Jarrell Arthur, their first-round pick, their Warriors' first-round pick, and Emmanuel Mudiay. That's what each side gave up. The picture should be on screen right now. I'll leave it up for a little bit. You can pause it and take a look at it. And now I'm going to kind of explain each team's motivation for what they gave up, why they gave it up, what other trades were first, and then how this became like the final trade. This is like a huge trade for me. I think every team is a winner on this. Every team generally gets what they want, and it's just an all-around good trade for everybody. So the Nuggets were willing to give up those first-round picks, their late first-round picks, not early ones, and Mudiay in order to get off some salary to sign their core that is playing really well. They want to sign them long-term. The Pacers wanted young guys picks. They were willing to take in salary to acquire young guys and picks. And then us, I pretty much just wanted Emmanuel Mudiay. When he came out on the market, I've always liked him since that draft, and I just really wanted him. And I really risked it, and I was almost willing to do whatever. There were some times where I had to say no. There were some times where they wanted me to take on some big contracts, and I was like, listen, I've got Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov, and I'm the Lakers. I'm supposed to be out here signing big free agents. I can't take on these huge contracts. And I was able to eventually work it. We were all able to work it to eventually where I think it worked for every single team. Originally, the Nuggets had Kenneth Faried in the trade instead of Burks and Arthur, but Faried makes about $10 million a year, and then later in his contract he makes about $12 million. And Arthur makes $8 million a year, and Burks makes $10 million a year. So the 10 and 8, that's $18 million a year, and if you count Faried's highest year, which is $12 million, that's $6 million more that the Nuggets are saving. So that's why it was Burks and Arthur, because the Pacers were willing to take on both of those guys instead of just Faried, because the Nuggets were like, if we're going to give up 2 first-round picks and Mudiay, we're trying to get rid of as much salary as we can. We are maxing out all the salary that we can get rid of. And he was like, I don't really want to get rid of Faried. Faried's still 27, and he's playing a lot on this good team. That's kind of why I was wondering why they were getting rid of Faried in the beginning, because this team is the 6th seed in the playoffs and freed your starting power forward alongside Jokic. So I was like, I don't know why you're necessarily getting rid of him. So that they rethought that, and that's why it was those two guys. So originally we were supposed to take Arthur and the Golden State pick, and the Pacers would get Burks and the Denver pick. But the Pacers wanted both first-round picks, even though they're late. And I was kind of like, well, Mudiay is the guy that I want, so you can have both first-round picks. But if I'm going to tell Denver to give you Arthur, who's only 28, and the Golden State pick, then you're going to have to take Luol Deng. And the Pacers really, they don't have that much salary on their books, because I went and looked when I was thinking about what I should ask them for in favor of giving them the first round pick. I was like, they really only have Omer Asik. They've done a really good job of taking on guys who are like minimal salary, but not that much. Like even with Luol Deng after this trade, they still have like $30 million in room. So I was like, if you want the first round pick and Arthur, you're going to take Luol Deng. And they were like, we will make that deal as long as you take Monte Ellis. And I was like, I sat there and thought for a second. I was like, all right, I'm getting Emmanuel Mudiay. I'm getting Deng off the books. I have to take Monte Ellis, who's still a big contract for, it's 1 year less than Deng. And I was like, I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, I got to do this. You know, I'm getting my guy Mudiay. I'm still giving up Nance. But specifically in that little talks with the Pacers, I was able to get off Luol Deng. I still had to take Ellis. They got the pick, but I got my guy, and I got Deng off the books, even though I had to take Monte. And I thought, you know, even though it's not exactly what I want, you got to make compromises in trades, and that was the compromise that we had to make in order to get Mudiay. So the Pacers just gave back the Nuggets, Lavoy Allen, and Nicholas Bressano, because they had to even out the number of players. So those two guys went back to the Nuggets for Burks and Arthur. They're both on 1 year deals, so the Nuggets get those two off the books after this year. They opened up a ton of salary this year. The Nuggets have like $35 million in cap space this year, and then when they get those two guys off the books, they're going to have like $40 million to re-sign all their core, so they really got what they wanted. And then they got Larry Nance from me in order to get Mudiay, so they opened up all that cap space. They got Larry Nance, and they had to give up 2 late first-round picks and Mudiay in order to do all that. So the Nuggets, you could say, were the real winners in this. They got a ton of cap space. They gave up basically 2 second-round picks. If both those teams if the Nuggets were to play Golden State in the conference finals, those are really late first-round picks. I mean, they're still solid picks, but they're not first. They're not lottery picks. And they gave up Mudiay, who's played 4 games the whole season, which is just crazy to me because I love Mudiay. He's only played 4 games the whole season, so he's basically a non-factor on their team. So they basically give up a rest player who never plays, and they opened up all that space. So really good trade from the Nuggets side. And then the Pacers, they get a young guy in Burks. They get a guy with some potential in Arthur, but he gets off the books after this year if they don't want him. They get the 2 first-round picks. They take Luol Deng, but that's what they have to do in order to get all those picks. So the Pacers have been making a lot of moves this year. They got rid of George, and now they've gone into the full rebuild. They've got a lot of young pieces on that team. They have a Miles Turner. They've got Jahlil Okafor. They have a Robert Covington. They've got a Glenn Robinson III. They've got Alec Burks. They had to take Luol Deng, but they've got Davis Bertans. They've got Okara White. They've got a Rakeem Christmas, a Quinn Cook, a Michael Carter-Williams, and they've got Asik. So Asik and Deng, they've basically taken on Asik and Deng. They've taken on some other veterans like an Arthur. I wouldn't really call Burks a veteran. He's only 25, although his contract is pretty big. But then again, it's not huge in this new salary cap because he was signed on the old cap. So they've got a ton of those young guys. They've got to have a ton of picks. I haven't looked, but they've got to have like 4 first-round picks, even though a couple of them are going to be late. At least one, their own pick is going to probably be in the top 5. And then they got one. Didn't they get one from the Sixers when they got George? That one, that one will be mid. But they've got to have 3 or 4 first-round picks. So they were a contender, and they decided to get rid of George and go for a rebuild. Actually, I wouldn't even know if I'd call them a contender. They were a playoff team who wasn't going to get past the Cavs, and they decided George is probably going to leave. Let's maximize what we get for him now. They got all that for George earlier in the season. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know they got the pick and Okafor basically. Oh yeah, and they got Covington. And now they got rid of all those veterans for some picks. Now they take on some salary for them picks. I feel like in a few years they could be really good with all these picks and young guys they're getting to experiment with, and they're giving all these young guys playing time right now so they can really see which ones are good NBA players and which ones they should get rid of. and then they'll have a lot of room on their roster for what young guys they want to sign for the future. And then for us, we give up the best player in the trade, Larry Nance. He's a 76 overall. Ellis is a 75, Mudiay is a 73, Burks is a 74. So we do give up the best player currently. Although from our perspective, I would argue that in 3 years, Mudiay will by far be the best player out of all those players, which is why we did. I really wanted Mudiay. That was why we were in there. We ended up being able to get off Dang. We had to take Monte's salary, but Monte's a year less, and he makes less per year. So we still have a big salary on our roster, but it's not as big as Dang's. And we get our guy Mudiay. So you really can't see who the winner of this trade is now. This is one of those trades where in 3 years we'll really know the winner. But I'm confident that I think we got the best player in this entire trade, and that in 3 years we'll look back on this and say we won in this trade. We might not have won by a large margin, but we won this trade. That's what I was overall thinking when I was talking and constructing this trade and trying to get these teams to do the deal, because everybody thinks they won now, but what will be the most important thing is who won in 3 years. As of right now, I'm not completely sure what our rotations look like. We got rid of Larry Nance Jr. in our front court. It opens up a lot of time for Randall and Zubac, which I'm really excited about, because now those two can get all the time. Randall can get all the shots. Zubac can get all the shots. They can really work. It's those two, and then Mozgov will be the guy who gets some time there. Ingram will probably have to play at the 4 now, but we needed to see Ingram at the 4 anyways for small ball lineups, because Dang would play at the 4, but now that Dang and Nance are gone, Ingram's going to get all the time at that 4, which that's good, because he doesn't have to play the 4, but we definitely need to see him at the 4 to see if he can work in a small ball lineup. I know our starting lineup is going to be Mudiay at the 1, Russell at the 2, Ingram at the 3, Randall at the 4, and Mozgov at the 5. I'm not sure at all what I'm going to do about guys coming off the bench, how that's going to work. I'm thinking about it. You guys are watching the footage, so I've obviously figured it out by now. But as of right now talking, I'm not completely sure. I've got to think about that. In the next video, I'll have that down. I'll know the rotations. I'll know everything, and we'll really get into what it's going to look like. Some of you had been asking for an update on this in the standings. Right now in the West, we're second to bottom. Phoenix is at the bottom. We're the second. Dallas is the third. Over in the East, the Nets are at the bottom with Orlando and Charlotte. Right now, the draft order, it's the Nets would be 1, Phoenix would be 2, and we'd be 3. So currently, we'd be keeping our pick. You never know with the lottery. We'll get into more draft stuff in the next video. The next video, I'm going to let you guys know how it's all working with Mudiay and Russell and how everybody's working together. And we're going to talk about the draft a little bit and what we plan to do in the draft, what we're looking for. We do have a lot of guards now with Russell, Clarkson, Mudiay, and what all I think about how they're going to work together, if one of them will eventually have to go, and just all that in general. That's going to be in the next video. So I want to thank you guys for watching this trades video. I do think we won this trade. I'm very confident that in 3 years I'll look back and say we won this trade. I really hope so. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.